Do you think you know the Chronicles of Narnia? Then answer yourself one question. Why did the White Witch have the legal right to demand Edmund's death? Most people immediately think of the magical wardrobe, Aslan the talking lion, and a charming children's fantasy. But here is the problem, that's not really the story of Lewis wrote. The actual book is far darker and far more profound. A brother betrays his own family for a few pieces of Turkish delight. An entire kingdom has been trapped in an endless winter to nearly for 100 years. Children are drawn into a real war, and the real story's greatest hero willingly walks to his death for someone who doesn't deserve such a sacrifice. The most surprising part at one of the novel's most pivotal moments, the White Witch isn't breaking the law at all. She's demanding that an ancient law, one that existed long before any of the children arrived in Narnia, be upheld. That's what makes her confrontation with Aslan so much more than a simple battle between good and evil. This is a story about betrayal, redemption, forgiveness, sacrifice, and a choice that determines the fate of an entire world. Today, we're taking in a in-depth look at the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, strictly following the original novel with no mixing in the films and no made-up additions. Well, break down every major event, every key plot twist, and explore the deeper meanings that most readers either overlook or misunderstand compared to what Lewis actually intended. If you enjoy deep dives into classic literature, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. You're actually on the RobertBooks channel, and let's step through the wardrobe into Narnia. Let's get started! When most people hear the Chronicles of Narnia, they think of a single book. That's the first misconception. So, in reality, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the second story in Narnia's internal chronology, even though it was the very first one factually published. Yeah. Its author, Clive Staples Lewis, better known as C.S. Lewis, was a British writer, literary scholar, professor at Oxford and later Cambridge, and a close friend of John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings. For years, the two men discussed literature, mythology, Christianity, constantly inspiring one another's work. The idea for Narnia had been taking shape in Lewis' imagination long before he ever began writing the novel. As a young man, he often pictured a faun carrying parcels through a snowy forest while holding an umbrella. Over time, that image was joined by taken animals, ancient legends, children discovering another world, and the figure of a great lion. Eventually, all of these ideas came together to form a single story. Lewis never hid the fact that he wasn't simply writing a fairy tale. Beneath the magical walls of Narnia lie ideas he considered deeply important. The novel draws inspiration from Greek and Norse mythology, European fairy tales, and of course, Christian tradition. But Lewis isn't retelling the Bible. Instead, he creates an entirely new world where similar themes are explored through new characters and new events. Lewis once explained that he asked himself a simple question: if there were another world like ours, and that world also needed saving, what would the story look like? His answers became a Aslan, the greatest lion, the great lion who stands at the heart of the entire Chronicles of Narnia. At the same time, the novel never turns into a theological treatise. First and foremost, it's a gripping adventure. Lewis understood that ideas have the greatest impact when readers experience them alongside the characters rather than being lectured about them. That's why the story begins not with philosophy but with four ordinary children who unexpectedly find themselves in a world where a very real war between good and evil is already underway. That's also why so many people believe they know The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when in reality what they most remember is the movie. Lewis' novel is quieter, deeper, and in many ways considerably harsher. It places far greater emphasis on the characters' inner struggles, on guilt and responsibility, and on how a single wrong choice can change the fate of an entire world. And it all begins quite simply. Four children are sent away from wartime Britain to the safety of an old country house. None of them has the slightest idea that an ordinary wardrobe is about to become the doorway to a world from which they will never return the same people once again they once were. The wardrobe that turned out to be a door to another world. The story begins during Second World War. German bombs rain down on London, thousands of children are evacuated to safer parts of the English countryside. Among them are four siblings, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and the youngest, Lucy. Pevensey, surname, yeah. They are sent to live in the enormous country house of an elderly professor who rarely interferes with the children's lives and gives them free rein to explore the estate. The house is so vast it feels like a maze. Endless hallways, empty rooms, antique furniture, and countless doors make it seem as though anything could be hiding around the next corner. One rainy afternoon, when going outside isn't an option, the children decide to play hide and seek. That's when Lucy opens the door to a spare room containing nothing but a large old wardrobe. At first, there's nothing unusual about it. She steps between the hanging fur coats, expecting to reach the back panel. Instead, she feels a sudden chill. Snow crunches beneath her feet, and trees begin to surround her. After only a few more steps, Lucy realizes something impossible has happened. She is standing in the middle of a snowy forest. The first thing she notices is a lone lamppost glowing softly among the snow-covered trees. It is there that she has the encounter that changes everything. Out of the darkness steps a strange creature, a faun named Mr. Tumnus. He has the upper body of a man, the legs and hoofs of a gull, carries an umbrella and is loaded down with parcels. To his surprise, he's just as startled to see Lucy as she is to see him. When Tumnus realizes she's a real human and daughter of Eve, he becomes deeply excited. He never met a human before. He invites Lucy back to his cave for tea and a chance to warm herself by the fire. The faun's home feels wonderfully cozy. He plays the flute, tells stories about Narnia, talking animals, magical creatures, and the happier days before the land fell under a terrible curse. By little by little, the conversation grows heavier. At last, Tumnus confesses something heartbreaking. The White Witch has ordered every creature in Narnia to report any human who enters the land immediately. Worse still, he was supposed to bring Lucy straight to her. That was the real reason he invited her home in the first place. But after spending time with her, he realizes he cannot betray her. With tears in his eyes, Tunas admits everything and decides to disobey the witch's command. Here he personally escorts, not what you can think, in normal way, escorts her back to the lamppost and push her back through the wardrobe. Lucy is convinced she's been gone for several hours, but when she steps out of the wardrobe, Peter, Susan, and Edmund insists she's disappeared for only a few seconds. She tells them about Narnia, the talking phone, and the snowy forest, but no one believes her, of course. Peter and Susan assume their little sister is simply imagining things, while Edmund openly mocks her story. None of them realize that Lucy has told the truth. Before long, however, Edmund himself will step through the wardrobe and discover that another world really does exist beyond its doors. And that encounter will set in motion the greatest betrayal in the entire book. Edmund's betrayal, how the White Witch nearly bought a child's soul. When Lucy returns from Narnia, no one takes her story seriously, as we told. Yeah? Peter Susan thinks she is simply making things up, while Edmund delights in teasing her. He especially enjoys making Lucy look foolish. But fate is about to force him through the wardrobe himself. One day, the children are playing hide and seek again. Hearing adults approach and Lucy darts into the wardrobe to hide, Edmund chases after her, hoping to catch her and laugh at her once more. He's certain he'll find nothing but the back of the wardrobe and his frightened little sister. Edmund has entered Narnia. Instead, Snowy suddenly crouches beneath his feet. He walks through the snowy woods hoping to find Lucy, but someone else finds him first. A magnificent sleigh pulled by reindeer races toward him across the snow. Sitting inside is a tall woman dressed in white wearing a golden crown, with eyes as cold as ice. You are cold as ice. It is the White Witch. From there, where first meeting, Lewis makes it clear that she's dangerous. Not because she shouts or threatens people, but because she knows exactly how to manipulate them. The moment she realizes Edmund is a human, a son of Aidan, she immediately understands how to evaluate he is. At first, she speaks to him with icy authority. Then, without warning, she changes her tone completely. She becomes warm, attentive, asks him questions, and offers him a hot drink. Then comes one of the most famous scenes in the novel. The witch gives Edmund a piece of enchained Turkish delight. This is not ordinary candy. Lewis makes it clear that the sweet has been magically enchanted. The more a person eats, the more desperately they crave another piece. The desire quickly becomes almost impossible to resist. Edmund devours one piece after another. Before long, he stops thinking about Lucy, Peter, Susan altogether. His entire mind is consumed by a single thought: how to get more. That's when the witch makes her real offer. She promises that if Edmund brings his brother and sisters to her, she will make him a prince and eventually the king of Narnia. Everyone else will obey him. He'll have power, wealth, and all the Turkish delight he could ever eat. Edmund agrees almost immediately. This is important. He betrays his family before he even learns the truth about Narnia. His decision isn't driven by fear. No one forces him. He freely chooses to believe the witch's promises because they appeal to his pride, ambition, and selfish desires. When he later finds Lucy, he deliberately hides his meeting with the witch. Instead, he returns home and continues mocking his story, even though he now knows every word of it is true. That's one of the most painful moments. Lewis shows that the most dangerous mistakes rarely begin with a great crime. They begin with a small compromise, with pride, envy, and the temptation to put your own desires above everyone else. Soon, all four children will enter Narnia together. But sons of Adam and daughters of Eve have finally arrived in her kingdom, and that will be a big mistake, but a big prophecy at the same time. For the White Witch, it means only one thing: the beginning of the end of her nearly 100-year reign. The prophecy: why the White Witch feared the children. When Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy stepped through the water once again, it happened, yeah, all them fought together through the wardrobe. There is no longer any doubt, Narnia is real. But they quickly discover that things have changed during their absence. In the first place, they visit Mr. Tumnus' house. Lucy wants to introduce her brothers and sister to the faun who once saved her life. Instead of the cozy little cave, she remembers they find it completely ransacked. Furniture has been overturned, belongings are scattered everywhere, and on the table lies an official notice from the White Witch secret police. From it, the children learned the terrible truth. Mr. Tumnus has been arrested. He's been charged with high treason for helping a daughter of Eve and refusing to hand her over to the White Witch. For Lucy, it's a devastating blow. She realizes the kind faun suffered because of her. She immediately wants to rescue him, but no one knows where he's been held, or whether anyone could even reach the witch's castle. Or at that moment, another character emerges from the forest. Mr. Beaver. He approaches the children and speaks the word that instantly changes everything. Aslan is on the move. To the reader it means nothing yet, but children's reaction speaks volumes. Author describes something remarkable. Each child experiences Aslan's name differently. Peter feels a sudden surge of courage. Susan is filled with quiet joy. Lucy feels as though she heard the most beautiful music in the world. Only Edmund experiences an unexplained sense of dread. Lewis never explains it outright, but the meaning is clear. The very name of Aslan begins to reveal what lies inside each person's heart. As they walk toward the beaver's house, the children finally learn why the White Witch is so desperate to capture every human who enters Narnia. An ancient prophecy has existed for generations. It says that when the two sons of Adam and two daughters of Eve sit upon the fourth throne at Cair Paravel, the White Witch reign will come to an end forever. That's why she hunts every human who enters Narnia. She's not afraid of the children themselves. She's afraid they will fulfill the prophecy. Over dinner, Mr. Beaver and Mrs. Beaver uh, said something else important, that they've been waiting for Aslan's return. They didn't speak him as an ordinary lion. He's the king of Narnia. Mr. Beaver delivers one of the most famous lines in the entire novel. Of course he is not safe, but he is good. He's the king. I tell you. Those words capture Aslan's character perfectly. He is not tame simply because he is on the side of good. No one can control him or command him. His power inspires awe, reverence, and deep respect. Yet while Peter, Susan, and Lucy begin to feel hope for the first time, Edmund is thinking about something entirely different. He remembers the White Witch's promises, power, a crown, and endless Turkish delight. That night he makes a decision that nearly destroys not only his own family, but all of Narnia. While everyone else sleeps, Edmund quietly slips away from the beaver's house and heads straight from the White Witch to betray his brother and sisters. At that moment, his betrayal becomes complete. Edmund's betrayal and Aslan's return. Under the cover of darkness, Edmund sneaks away from the beaver's house. He still believes the White Witch will keep her promise, making him a prince, giving him a throne, and an endless supply of enchained Turkish delight. He barely thinks about the fact that he's betrayed his own family. But the journey to the witch castle is nothing like he imagined. The freezing cold, the endless snow, and growing hunger slowly wear away his confidence, and when he finally reaches the White Witch, he's met with his greatest disappointment. She doesn't thank him, she doesn't welcome him as a future prince, she cares only about one thing. Where are the other children? When she learns Edmund has come alone, she immediately reveals her true nature. Lewis brilliantly exposes how evil works. As long as someone is useful, they promised everything. The moment they're no longer useful, they discard it without a second thought. Instead of a reward, Edmund receives an order. He is to accompany the witch as she hunts down the others. He is no longer an ally. He is no longer a future king. He is simply another tool. But as they travel across Narnia, Edmund begins to see the truth. He witnesses the witch cruelty firsthand and for the first time realizes the terrible mistake he's made. Meanwhile, Narnia itself is beginning to change. The snow starts melting, streams begin to flow, birds return, flowers bloom. What that means? After nearly 100 years of endless winter, spring has finally arrived. It can mean only one thing: Aslan has come. Peter, Susan, and Lucy set out to meet the Great Lion. Along the way, they encounter Father Christmas. His appearance is the clearest sign yet that the White Witch's power is fading. He gives each child a gift suited to the role they will one day play. Peter receives a sword and shield. Susan is given a bow and a magical horn. Lucy receives a small bottle of healing cordial. Jack Daniels. At last they meet Aslan. Lewis doesn't simply describe him as an enormous lion. Instead, he shows the reaction of everyone around him. No one appoints Aslan king. No one has to announce his authority. Everyone instantly knows they are standing before the true ruler of Narnia. But Aslan immediately notices also that Edmund is missing, for example. He understands what has happened, yet he doesn't blame the others. The greatest trial still lies ahead. The White Witch comes to Aslan's camp. She knows that once the children are under his protection, her reign is doomed. But she also knows something else. The deep magic of Narnia gives her one final claim. Edmund's fate will not be decided by swords, but by an ancient law. The White Witch invokes the deep magic, declaring that because Edmund is a traitor, his life belongs to her by right, and here the novel's central Christian theme is fully revealed. Aslan does not abolish the law, nor does he pretend Edmund's betrayal never happened. Sin has consequences, justice still matters. But instead of demanding that the guilty pay the price, Aslan chooses to bury it himself. That night, he walks willingly to the stone table where his enemies are waiting him. He allows them to bind him, he allows them to kill them. Though he has the power to resist, he chooses not to. The White Witch believes she has won, but she has failed to understand the deepest truth. Her power extends only as far as punishment. Aslan's power is rooted in love and willing sacrifice. Author presents a truth that echoes throughout Christian tradition. The innocent willingly bears the penalty of the guilty so that the guilty may receive new life. But Aslan's death is not the end. There is a deeper magic, older than the witch herself. It declares that if an innocent victim freely gives his life in the place of a traitor, death itself must turn backwards. That's why Aslan's sacrifice becomes not a defeat, but a greatest victory. He saves not only Edmund, he reveals the highest law of Narnia. True power is not the ability to force others to obey. True power is the willingness to lay down your life for someone else. Aslan's resurrection and the final battle for Narnia. After Aslan's sacrifice, the White Witch is certain she has won. To her, the lion death marks the end of all hope for Narnia. But at dawn, the impossible happens. The stone table cracks in two, and Aslan rises from the dead. The witch knew the deep magic, but she knew and never understood its deepest meaning. She understood justice, but not the power of will and sacrifice. Here, Lewis draws his clearest Christian parallel. The one who freely gives his life to save others wins the victory even over death. But Aslan's resurrection is more than his return, it's the beginning of Narnian's deliverance. Together with Lucy and Susan, he travels to the witch castle, where he breathes life back into those she had turned to stone. Wherever her rule brought cold, fear, and death, Aslan restores freedom, hope, and life. Meanwhile, Peter prepares Narnian's forces for the final battle. The witch's army is vast, and victory seems impossible. Peter fights bravely as a true leader, but the outcome is still uncertain. Then Aslan arrives and everything changes. Of course, extra more army. Thanks, man. The witch is no longer invincible, because her power was built on the fear, while Aslan's rests on love, sacrifice, and hope. The final battle is not simply a clash between two armies, it's a collision between two ways of ruling the world. One built on territorial control, the other on protection, self-sacrifice, and compassion. The White Witch is defeated, her reign comes to an end, and after a century of winter, Narnia is finally free. Peter, Susan, Edmund, Lucy are crowned as the new rulers of the kingdom, but their coronation is more than a reward. Each of them has been transformed by the journey. Peter has learned responsibility. Edmund has learned repentance and redemption. Susan and Lucy have discovered that true courage must always be guided by wisdom and compassion. The story ends not simply as a victory of good over evil, but as a reminder that even the greatest mistake can be redeemed if a person is willing to admit it, change, and choose a better path. Hidden meanings and the philosophy of the Chronicles of Narnia. Beneath its story of children, a magical land, and the battle between good and evil, Lewis weaves a much deeper message. At the heart of the novel is the theme of redemption and the possibility of a second chance. Edmund is not a hero from the beginning. He betrays the people closest to him because of pride, resentment, and the temptation of power. Yet his story shows that a person is not defined by their worst mistake. What matters is not what they once did, but whether they are willing to acknowledge their guilt and change. Aslan is the book's central philosophical symbol. For Christian readers, he clearly reflects Christ. The innocent willingly accept the punishment deserved by the guilty, dies, and rise again. But Lewis' message reaches beyond Christianity alone. True strength is not found in destroying your enemies, but in sacrificing yourself for others. The White Witch represents modern evil. She embodies a false understanding of power. She rules Narnia through fear, freezes life into lifeless order, and demands absolute obedience. Her endless winter symbolizes a world without love, where control has replaced life itself. What's especially striking is that the witch never appears as a simple monster. She offers Edmund exactly what he already desires: recognition, status, pleasure, power. Lewis reminds us that evil rarely arrives looking evil. More often, it comes beautifully wrapped, promising to satisfy our deepest desires. Through the four Pevensie children, author explores different paths to maturity. Peter learns what it truly means to lead. Susan learns responsibility. Lucy preserves faith, kindness, and compassion. Edmund walks the hardest road of all, from betrayal to redemption. But perhaps the novel's greatest question is this: what truly makes someone great? Not strength, not authority, not victory over others. According to Lewis, true greatness begins when a person is willing to put something greater than themselves first. That's why The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe remains far more than a children's fantasy. It's a story about choice, temptation, forgiveness, sacrifice, and the hope that even after the longest even winter, spring can still return. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. You are on a RobertBooks channel. Yeah, you know. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Goodbye.